Is the rejection of prospective foster parents on the grounds of their religious beliefs a form of prejudice?
This is the story right here in Derby of Eunice and Owen Jones, who were told they couldn't foster because of their attitude to gay sex or gay relationships, which was part of their views as Pentecostal Christians. Margaret Beckett, was it right that they should be rejected because of that?
I'm very sorry to say this because they seem to be like a very public-spirited couple who've obviously done a lot of good for a lot of other children during their time. As I understand it, they've been foster parents in the past. But I'm afraid it was the right decision to say they couldn't continue because, you know, a child may know at an earliest stage their own sexuality, others don't. And they could have had children placed with them for whom their teaching could have been profoundly disturbing. So I'm sorry to say it because we need good foster parents and we need people of goodwill. But I'm afraid, what was your word? Is it a form of prejudice? No, I think it's a care that has to be taken in the interests of the children who might be placed.
Are there other opinions? Other opinions foster parents might hold which you would think disqualified them?
Well, I mean, I think everybody would agree that if people were showing racist prejudice or whatever, you would not think that they were suitable people. So yes, there are other opinions. This is a particularly difficult one, I think.
David Starkey.
I am gay and I'm atheist, but I have profound doubts about this case. It seems to me that what we're doing is producing a tyrannous new morality that is every bit as oppressive as the old. When I grew up, being gay was very difficult. It was frowned upon, and if you signalled you were, I remember vividly, and it's one of the things that's altered my politics more than anything else, being moved on by police on Victoria Station, being in a gay club when it was busted, and the whole thing. You know, I've been there. But I am very, very concerned that a new sort of liberal morality is coming in, which, as I said, is as intolerant, is as oppressive, as intrusive into family life. For example, the couple who were running, we've had a lot of cases like this. There were the couple who were running some sort of hotel, who were Christians, and didn't want a gay couple to sleep there. Now, the way to do that is not to ban them, not to fine them. It is for them simply to put up what seems to me to be a quite proper notice in a small, privately run hotel, which says, we are Christians and this is what we believe. And you know, otherwise, we are, as I said, we're producing a new tyranny. And can I also tell you something else? Speaking as somebody who is gay and had a mother who was a Christian and passionately hated and opposed it, the hatred and the opposition made me what I am. Being nice and sweet about gays isn't wholly a good thing. It really isn't. We live in a world of intense difficulty and plurality, and just having it hang me down, reach me down, off a hanger, impose morality is a very bad idea.
I think we do live in quite a free society now, so even if your parents' opinion is that you shouldn't be gay, you probably still can be, and I think there are far worse parents out there than just Christians who don't believe that there should be gay people.
So you think that a foster parent should be allowed to hold those views because parents could hold those views?
Yeah, definitely.
Ian Duncan-Smith.
I think this is not, I don't think, quite the principled issue that at first glance you think it is. If you examine actually what this was really all about, let me just try and explain this, because I really did look at this to see what was going on. The reality here was that the council was concerned when they asked the question of the couple that if the child in their care, because remember they're foster carers, they're not parents, they're temporary parents, they're there to give love, nurture and care. And the point they were asking, as I understand it, was if the child was to come to you, a child was to come to you in your care and express the fact or the thought or the belief that they were gay, would you be content with that, or would you try and expound your views onto them? And they said they would tell them they thought that was wrong. And the point about the foster carer is their role isn't to push their views onto the child that's temporarily in their care. That's the point at issue here. The judgment is not about them holding those views, for they are fully entitled to hold those views. The problem is, this child is not theirs. The child is under the protection of the state, and whilst in the foster care is about love, care and nurture. And the key point here, which is really important that shouldn't be missed, that children, as many children as possible, should not be in care homes because they ultimately don't do them any good at all. We want them to be with foster care. And I know this couple were a very loving and a very good set of foster parents. I think the problem was them deciding this was somehow a principled issue, when in actual fact, they said, look, we hold the views we do, but we would not try and push those down onto the child. We would simply love and care for that child. Then there would not have been an issue. And I think that's the point here.
But the social worker raised the issue in the first place.
I think all right, the council and the others should need to think about this. The care of the child is absolute in this, and I think keeping that child with the foster parents is important. But it is important that the foster parents recognise it's not their role as foster parents then to thrust their views on that child. That was what the issue was about, as I understand it.
Eunice and Owen Johns from Derby. These are the kind of people who we should be celebrating. These are the kind of people who should be getting MBEs and OBEs. This couple have adopted over 20 children. They were in line to look after a child between the age of 5 and 8. Of 5 and 8. I'm a tolerant guy, but sometimes if you absolutely push tolerant people, they become intolerant because you go past the point of no return. And this is a situation where the absolute letter of the law, which may have been drafted with good intentions, has completely blown away any proportion of common sense. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen.
David, can I just...
I can come back.
Let
me just hit the lady there.
I think it was the right decision, because I think no matter what we think or feel in our private lives and in our minds, we have a duty to behave in a certain way when we're at work, for instance. Now, if it's right that homophobia is bad, then, and I do agree that homophobia is bad, then yes, it was the right decision. That you can't put vulnerable children in a situation which could make their vulnerability worse.
Is a child really vulnerable when between the age of 5? Is a child really vulnerable when between the age of 5 and 8 they may happen to ask their foster parent why they're confused about their sexuality? This is an absurd surmise. The child was between 5 and 8.
I will come to him. Mark Malloch-Brown.
Well, look, I'm listening to this, I'm fresh, and I must say, a lot of me wants to agree with David, does agree with David, actually, that we just have to be so careful to not let the state become the decider of morality and choice and freedoms. And yet you've got to look very carefully at the specifics of the case. And so we hear 5 to 8. Well, really, it's so unlikely that the gay issue is going to be part of a 5 to 8-year-old's questions or experience or whatever. On the other hand, if a social worker asks that question, and this is a child who is in the public trust and is being, in a sense, put under the protection temporarily of foster parents, then of course you have to worry about, is the foster parent going to try and bend that child's future in some way? So incredibly tricky, and yet I have to say, ultimately, when in doubt, I come down on David's side on this, and Liam's.
David.
I was astonished at what Ian was saying. I've always regarded Ian as a decent man who believes in principles. How can you bring up a child, even as a foster parent, without transmitting your values to them? And what sort of upbringing is that? The distinction is meaningless and absurd.